The attorneys general of Arkansas and Missouri and others announcing they are, along with 4 other states, challenging the Biden administration's new rules on Title IX. Now, Title IX is a landmark law from 1972 that bans discrimination in education programs based on sex or gender. The lawsuit alleges the Biden administration has overstepped in its expansion of the law to redefine biological sex to include gender identity.
The Department of Education says, quote, the final rule protects all students and employees from all sex discrimination prohibited under Title IX, including against discrimination based on sex stereotypes, sexual orientation, gender identity, and sex characteristics. But do these changes really help to create inclusion, or does it actually hurt women and girls in sports? Iowa Attorney General Brenna Bird and Arkansas Attorney General Tim Griffin both filed suit against the Biden administration over Title IX. Brenna, can you talk to us about the safety concerns for women and girls in sports here, and why you believe that this suit is necessary to protect them?
Well, look, we had a young lady at our press conference just discussing the common sense implications of this. She's a high school athlete, lives in Arkansas, and she's concerned about what's going to happen in the locker room, what's going to happen when she's traveling and has to stay in a hotel. Is she going to be rooming with someone who was born a boy but now identifies as a girl? There's so many questions there. But there's also the fact that, look, it's personal for me. I've got 2 young daughters. I've got one 16 and one 6. And is a boy who couldn't win a trophy as a boy going to take the slot of one of my daughters because he's now feels like a girl? That's exactly what happened in New York last weekend with a young man who was born a man. He feels like he's a woman. He raced. He was mediocre to bad as a male, and now he set the 400-meter Division III record.
Yeah,
that's what we're dealing with here. It makes no sense.
Want to play this for you as well. Education Secretary Miguel Cardona appearing to take a victory lap over the Biden administration's changes to Title IX. We have that. Let's play that for you. And then AG Brenna Bird will get your response on that. Here's that moment.
Today, I'm proud to advance the Department of Education's work to clarify and build upon the legacy of Title IX. For more than 50 years, Title IX has opened doors for generations of girls and women. This final regulation strengthens and restores vital protections against sex discrimination, including sexual harassment. It also protects students against discrimination based on pregnancy or related conditions, sexual orientation, and gender identity.
And obviously that's the big sticking point, right? Gender identity. He goes on there, AG Bird, your thoughts on the Education Secretary taking a victory lap on this and maybe how many women feel about these changes from this administration.
Well, that just shows how out of touch the Biden administration is with real America, what a failure they have been, because what they did was take a landmark law that protected women and girls from discrimination in education and also made sure that women and girls had access to sports so that they could compete on sports teams, and turned that on its head and made women less safe, took away their privacy of girls in locker rooms and on the road, as Attorney General Griffin talked about, and turned all of that on its head. And there they have the audacity to come out and say that it's a good thing. It's not. What they did hurts women, hurts girls, and they did it in violation of the law. And I'm so glad that Attorney General Griffin is leading the charge on this and that we are working together with him, because this law, what they did with the rule is just illegal, and it has to stop. They have to follow the law just like everybody else and not impose their woke gender ideology on the rest of us.
Attorney General Griffin, so some women are still vocalizing opinions that they would like transgender women to be able to compete in women's sports. One example is Megan Rapinoe, a U.S. soccer player. What is your response to athletes such as Megan and other women who might be pushing for biological men to compete in women's leagues?
Well, first of all, with all due respect to the secretary, that was a word salad. I don't even know what half of that stuff means once you drill down. Well, of course, there are people who have every view under the sun. That's not the issue here. We don't file lawsuits because of bad policy. We file lawsuits because of the law, because it's illegal. And what this administration has done is illegal. It's unconstitutional. It doesn't go through the traditional process for changing the law that we learned from Schoolhouse Rock in the 70s. Also, it's statutorily wrong. This is a statute that's been on the books for decades. There's been no question. There's been no need for clarification. This has been the law. And all of a sudden, they decide with a pen to change it. So there are statutory problems with their interpretation of a statute that has meant something for a long time. There's constitutional problems on how they're doing this, but also they're compelling speech. If you don't use someone's pronoun the way they want, that could be harassment. That First Amendment not only guarantees that we can say whatever, but it guarantees us not to have to say. We can't be compelled to say things that we don't want to say. And so we're challenging on statutory grounds, constitutional grounds. Also, administratively, this is arbitrary and capricious. There are numerous legal arguments here, and we're going to win this.
All right. AG Byrd, I'll bring you back on this. There have been several lawmakers from several states saying, hey, we're not going to follow this change to Title IX by the Biden administration. That will not be adhered to, despite the legal proceedings that are coming forward by you and several other states. Can you talk to us just about that and why you feel convicted to really get involved with this fight? There's seemingly, again, a difference here with the NCAA and the NAIA, their lead on this. The NAIA doesn't want it. The NCAA, you haven't really heard at least their stance on it just yet. But that is where things can really shift. Remember, a lot of these state-funded colleges or state colleges need federal funding, and that's where a lot of the concern comes from. Would they withhold that if they're not adherent to the new administration's changes to Title IX? AG Byrd.
Yeah, well, that's right. The Biden administration is threatening schools with taking away their education funding. That is a heavy stick, and that's part of the reason why we are suing here, because schools should not be forced to do that. And we're talking about girls and women all the way from preschool up to college. And it has turned over 50 years of what women fought hard for, to be included in sports, to not be discriminated against, turned it on its head. And, you know, things like using the wrong pronouns are now discrimination. That's not what the law says. And that's why we are taking the Biden administration to court to fight back so that they're not ending these protections for women and girls, so that we can still be safe and that the law will be followed. Because the Biden administration, they have to follow the law just like everybody else. And if they want to change it, they need to pass a law in the House and Senate and be signed by the president. That's what the Constitution says.
All right, a handful of states coming forward, including Iowa and Arkansas. That's AG Byrd and Tim Griffin. Thank you both.